Welcome to In a Heartbeat. I'm Liz Aiken. You know this show comes to you out of the great studios of Grosse Pointe Farms, Michigan, the Grosse Pointe War Memorial, and this is WMTV. All right, now you know I've been at this station for quite some time doing different shows. In a Heartbeat is my passion, and that's a show I dreamed about doing years before I ever even started it. Along the way, I knew I would be moving and doing some different things elsewhere than right in Grosse Pointe. I had this show, which again was my passion. I wasn't about to give it up. I had to find a way that made sense for me to be able to be in town, do this show, move and do other shows, and eventually send you shows from other areas around the nation, which is coming. We'll get to that later. But the funny thing is, you know how serendipity happens, and I'm always saying to people, I tell my kids all the time, talk to people. If you see somebody that sparks something, talk to them. You never know where that's going to lead you. For me, it led to three wonderful people who have become my hosts on the show. Dr. David Balle, who has co-produced and co-hosted with me, Joan Morris, and John Clor. Each one in their own way came to me in some fashion, and they have added to this show, which gives you then more perspective. And you know what? Change is inevitable. You need the diversity of many different points of view, and then the people that they know, a lot bigger circle than my circle I would be drawing from. Plus, you know what? It's so fun. Then you never know what's really going to happen. While change, as I said, is inevitable, we have another change coming, which we're going to present to you today. But right off the bat, I'm telling you, this show is so unscripted. Fasten your seatbelts. I have no idea really what's going to happen, except a couple things. But I want to, again, reintroduce you, people whom you've known for this good past year and more, and actually one going back into the 90s. I am so pleased, really, to have been part of this show from WMTV, In a Heartbeat, with Dr. David Balle.
Great to be with you again, Liz.
So fun. Joan Morris.
Hi, Liz.
This is so fun. In car guy, John Clor. This is so cool. Okay, so we're facing our next season.
Yeah, can you believe we've done this now for over a year? I mean, this is pretty cool.
All right, so
the four of us.
All right, let's start with you, because you've been my co-producer along the way as I moved on. What have you found over the year, and even though the time from the very first time you were doing interviews here in the studio?
As time has come on, I've become more comfortable. I think it's, I was really a fish out of water being here, but you helped bring me forward. And I've learned to become very organized. I've had a sense of timing and you know, just always be open to who might be a good or exciting or interesting guest. And I enjoy it as much as hopefully anybody else does. I learned so much from people. It's exciting for me, and you're all a great team, and we have a great mentor and teacher and a great group, and it's been a lot of fun and a big learning experience.
So when you're out there and you are conducting business, your medical practice, do you find that you look out at people any differently because you have in the back of your mind there could be a show in this?
I do, and even with the medical journals I receive, newspaper articles have been some of the inspiration for some of the guests I've had on the show. Just experiencing life, and you know, sometimes things will come to us, as we all know, at the oddest times. You know, oh, that would be an interesting topic, or that would be a person be an interesting guest, and I think you all experience the same thing. And it's fun that way. And then the idea of tracking that person down,
yeah.
You know how that goes.
That's the truth.
And getting through whatever steps or layers you have to do, and arranging times, having the person take time out of their schedule. There's a lot involved, but it's so worthwhile.
Right. Okay, and Joan,
Well,
so you came to me in a great fashion from Jean from Wink.
Right.
And that's its own crazy story that we've gotten into before. But even with your specialty of managed care, you were a perfect addition to Dr. Balle to add you now to the team, because managed care and the whole healthcare changes, that's paramount in everybody's mind, truthfully.
Absolutely. I mean, are we not, like, as we move into the Affordable Care Act, I mean, it is not mimicking off of managed care, you know, and all the other additions that will be overseen in the program as we try to ensure the majority of people in the country. Just to feed off of Dr. Balle. Everything that he said is exactly the way that it is happened for me. You find yourself at social events, you're going, oh gosh, is this someone that I can interview? Because our social events are usually centered around something that somebody's there that's in medicine. And in the beginning, it was like finding the guests and how am I going to do that? Because you have your full-time job, and yet you have your passion. And so you just really try to always stay on target with trying to figure out how you're going to get that connect. And once you get that connect, which I finally did after 12 months, is like through communication, association, and like Dr. Balle said, the paper. I go, oh my gosh, this is someone. And then it just dribbles on, and it's just like, now I've got my niche. And so you work the niche, and it just brings you the guests.
And don't you find, and I'm sure, I know this is true with you. Then we'll get to you, JC. But don't you find that a lot of times now guests are coming to you because they've been referred by somebody else?
Absolutely.
Somebody picked up the phone, called you, and said, or texted you and said, and I got a great idea of somebody I think would be a perfect guest.
Yes.
And I love that because now that's like second generation or whatever or like you say, you see something like I was reading something in Healthcare Review Weekly, and I love that periodical, that newspaper, and then you're like on the web, I gotta track this guy down, or this person, and you find that when you can say to somebody, I have a TV show, blah, 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 and now of course that we cover all of southeastern Michigan, when you say something to somebody, but I found this even when we were just local in the 5 Grosse Pointes in Harper Woods, when you say I have a show and I would be, and really 99.999% of the time, people would say, I'm so in. And you love it. And you have a great show. And then, you know what? All right, literally, from the first moment almost that I was doing TV, and I actually started off, I was doing GP20 out of the high school, Grosse Pointe South TVS. I'm probably saying that right, but out of Grosse Pointe South with Julie Corbett, Dr. Corbett, and also with Steve Garrissey. I was at some shindig for a completely unrelated reason, and this guy, Charlie Krasner, came up to me and said, and I didn't know him, he introduced himself to me, and he said, Liz, I watched your show. I just started doing Positively Positive and my demented cooking show, Lizard's Lounge. And Charlie came up to me and he said, there is a guy you absolutely need to meet. He would be a great guest. And the guy's name is John Clor. So I go, oh, okay. So I called John Clor, got him on Positively Positive. We sat there and we did like a regular show, regular show. And then I looked at this guy and I go, there's more to it than this because there's some whole thing going on behind this guy that I'm not seeing. And so I said to him, I have a cooking show and it's demented, and do you cook anything? And what did you say, pal, John Clor?
I make Cheerios and Pop-Tarts.
A wicked Pop-Tart.
Yeah, but we came up with a cookie recipe.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was funny because I first came on because I was working in the Grosse Pointe Hockey Association, and we were and Positively Positive was about being a positive role model, and I had a different approach to most of the coaches who wanted to go out and win the games and take win for the Gipper, and I was all a matter of team. I wanted to do team building, give each guy a job on that team, whether your skills were superb or completely zero. Doesn't matter. We'll teach you one skill and then you learn it, and then together, when you put all those skills together, you'll make an accomplishment. Now, whether you win or lose wasn't my game. The funny thing was that I drafted teams on chemistry. And they said, you pick that kid, he's terrible. I said, well, that's fine. He can learn how to skate. You can't teach passion.
Seriously, and just as an adjunct, I know on so many times on Charlie Rose and a lot of these shows, and it comes back to the same thing. John Charlie Rose show, they said, he was talking to some guy, and they said really what it comes down to, it's two things. It's that passion. It's always to me, the thing is, the passion is the thing. But he said it's passion and it's persistence.
Yeah.
That you have something and you know it's right. You can't explain why you know what you do, and you follow through.
Yeah, and then one of the moms had a cookie recipe that they made out of wafers and made these little cute little cheeseburgers. So I brought it on, and since it was an hour show, wasn't it that hour as an hour show?
Yeah, it was,
so
no,
we
no,
not
no,
only
it was a half hour.
well, it felt like an hour. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it made it seem like hours to you, days.
So we not only we made the frosting, and it got to the point where at the end of the show we were making purple cheeseburgers, and we lost it. Yeah, really lost it. Yeah,
and the kids were a crew, so they're going more, you know.
Well, and then when we got into Heartbeat, Liz would have me on because I was in the automotive field as the one non-medical professional of the group. I thought, I would come on and talk about safety and the kinds of things, the practical aspects of, our transportation and how that impacts our health, and whether it's, texting and driving, or whether it's accidents, or being safe when you drive. We had a lot of shows like that.
We had one just a few months ago that was about when is the time to take the keys away. And again and again, I can't really push this enough to all of you, that you really at some point in time really have to be serious about this, because you're seeing again and again, people are driving, and whether it is the texting or whether they are just, I've heard more stories of people whose parents they're not safe. They are not safe, so that means any person on the street is not safe. That show I am so glad that we did, because
well, those were the kinds of topics, but when we all sat down and when the four of us decided to carry Heartbeat, I thought to myself, well, I'll bring a layman's perspective, because you guys are in the field. So I did that for a while. I had dentists and doctors and even chiropractors, and then I started going beyond my typical medical circle, and I had meditation specialists and people in the healthcare field, and then a guy who does medical supplies, and then you can tell what started to happen. If you guys were watching, I would say In a Heartbeat is always about your health and well-being, and
science and technology.
And the technology. And I said, so you take health and well-being and technology, put them together, and I said, what about the health and well-being of Detroit and our community, and how did we grow so healthy and big and strong? It was the auto industry. So then that was a really cheesy way to try to segue into an automotive show. But that's what I started doing. And then, I just said, well, I've just lost. I watched all but I had pretty much exhausted my medical circle. And someone said, are you a doctor, or you have some kind? I said, no, I'm not a doctor, but I play one on television. So that's why, Liz, I kind of carjacked the show. Yeah, I carjacked the show.
Wait, so the last time we did this show, and I'm doing this interviewee.
We're whistling for it.
And actually today when we were starting up, I said, okay, just remember, John.
Wait, you want to talk?
We still share. We're sharing the toys for the show.
Well, what people don't realize,
this is the last time.
And I didn't know this either before I became a host. It's one thing to be a guest, and we were all guests of Liz's. But what people don't realize is when you do cable access television, the amount of time and effort it takes to produce a show, from concept to, like you say, tracking down your guest, and then coming up with what you hope is a compelling 30 minutes of television, to the point where you come in with the studio, and the team here is just awesome, with Jeremy and Kermit and Lauren just doing a great job, and it makes it fun, but it's still a tremendous amount of time and effort, and people don't realize that this is just something we do because we want to bring this information to our community, and for no other reason but just to make our viewers smarter, better informed, and we hope entertained. So that to me was the eye-opener. Doing the shows, it was always fun to come in here, and I'd let Liz do all the heavy lifting and worry about I would try to let her talk for a couple of seconds on her show.
Hold on a second. So let me just stop for a little reminder. If you're just tuning in, this is In a Heartbeat. I am Liz Aiken, the originator of the show. This is John Clor. He has some news coming up. I'm getting the vibes on that one. I have Dr. David Balle here and Joan Morris. And again, we all bring our specialty to WMTV, and we are very pleased to do this. So I just want to remind you of whose show, what you're watching, and because it's soon to change. So do we have some breaking news here,
We do. We have some breaking news, and it's kind of my fault, because as I said, as I'd go more and more Heartbeat episodes, I would start carjacking them, and we'd talk about the health and industry of the health of Detroit and of the things that we're all passionate about. So what I did is I talked to Kermit, and I said, I think the station we're in Grosse Pointe, and the history of this community has been all about cars. And so I thought, you know, I've had 30 years as a communicator, mostly in the car industry, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to take cars and put them into the context of our everyday lives and try to make them understandable, interesting, something that we're not afraid of anymore, whether to purchase, to own, to operate, or even when we think about how the bigger footprint of Detroit is our life in this industry, how we got to get around, and how will we get around in the future, and what this mobility has done with our lives. So I wanted to launch a show. And the reason I call it Cars in Context is because, you know, I love bloggers and I love the kids these days, but I find them taking a lot of things out of context, and they write about one little thing with a very narrow perspective, and for me, it's a whole big wide world out there. So they agreed to let me start my Cars in Context show, and I'm going to be leaving the In a Heartbeat group. Yeah, so the Fab Four becomes the Talented Three now. So this will be the last In a Heartbeat I'm on as a co-host, and hopefully we'll get everyone to start watching Cars in Context.
We may invade your show.
Which would be great.
Are you game?
Yeah,
sure. Invade the show.
Which would be great. Yeah. So the whole idea is I have 3 E's. You know, I want to engage. That's the number one thing. So everybody has some kind of life with their car, whether it's just a transportation device, an appliance that gets you to work, or if it's a passion.
Yes.
If you're going to the Woodward
James.
James.
Part with it.
Yeah. Or you have a name for it. Oh, Betsy, you know, that's
All
fine.
these people have names.
The other thing is really to educate, because I think a lot of us now, cars are so complex, and we drop it off somewhere and pick it up. We don't know what's going on with it. And sometimes it'll help us to know a little bit more about this device so that we don't get taken advantage of or make the wrong decision. You know, don't forget, a car is your second most expensive purchase other than your house. And in some cases, in the way of real estate's been, your car's more expensive than your house.
Right.
So it's important. And then the last one is hopefully is to entertain, because if we're not in that business, it's goodbye.
Man,
so I think with the people in the industry and all the things that are funny and fun about cars and transportation in our lives, I'm getting around everywhere. I think it'll be the easy part.
You know what, I have to say too, because this is something I could see in the 90s. You needed a show. It makes so much sense. We live in the Motor City. Yeah. And we need a show. And I was thrilled to see the Great Lakes log come out on our show on our network, because it's about where do we live? We live around, you know, in the connectors of the Great Lakes international waterways. It's so important. And that was the next thing I saw. Man, we need it. So you know what? Congratulations, pal.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, this is going to be.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm just hoping that when I tune in and your heartbeat shows, you just go, oh, there's no John. That's right. You guys will have a lot of fun carrying on, and hopefully I'll bring a little added spark to WMTV, so people keep watching us, because I think when they see how much effort we put into bringing our passion and our knowledge to cable access, so that people can share in this, it's good for everybody. It's going to be a good win-win for everybody, and that's why I think with my my logo, Cars in Context, the reason it says, the reason it looks like a GPS device is because we want to give people direction. This is this, see the arrow?
Yeah, I do. Look at that.
The road sign. It's a GPS. And cars that have been taken out of context, like the Edsel, you know, the Edsel was considered like the biggest mistake ever. But really, if you took the car into context, you'd find out the car was just way ahead of its time. The Pinto was deemed unsafe. It was a rolling barbecue, but the problem was the Pinto really had no more fires than any other small car of its era. So when taken out of context, it got labeled. It's like the Corvair. So many cars that we're used to in our era here were just taken out of context, and they lost their ability to be viable because our media or maybe some zealot took it out of context. And that's why I'm going to put all this world into context for everybody, so we have fun with them, we enjoy them, and hopefully we'll have a great TV show.
All right, I'm giving you 1 minute.
Okay.
1 minute. Time it. All right, Jeremy, we're on the clock, baby. Just like rowing, we're on the clock.
That's my new project.
Yeah, talk about this briefly, because this is unreal.
You know, you had me on my show when I did a book called Mustang Dynasty, because I love that little Mustangs, and then I got interviewed by the people that did the Mad Men. The season 4 DVD people came in, and it was around the 60s. I do. The 60s era was what was one of the most marketable things in the 60s was a Ford Mustang. So they came in and interviewed me, and then I wound up on the back of that DVD as a documentary, a 30-minute documentary. And I got to narrate, and you can always get one if you guys want to get a copy of that for your Mustang friends. You can go to the SVTOA, that's Special Vehicle Team Owners Association, SVTOA.com, and there's a little store on there. You can buy these for your Mustang-loving friends. You can't get that, some of the footage from the archives from the Henry Ford Museum to go back and see how these cars were developed and marketed, again, by people with passion. Yeah. One of the cool stories was that the guys that created that car couldn't do it at work because they were told, don't do it, we don't want it. They had to leave their office building and go down Michigan Avenue, rent a hotel room, a little conference room, bring in food, and talk about the car they wanted to launch. And that, again, goes back to the passion of doing what you think is right. So
we're going to stay tuned.
New project,
You show some pieces of that.
I probably will. Yeah.
Yep. All right, cool. Okay, so that is what's up with you. Joan, what's going to be happening with you this next season?
Healthcare. Bringing interesting guests to enlighten the community and share, interesting procedures. Like, hopefully I'll be able to have someone on talking about CyberKnife and how we'll be able to use that in doing certain procedures, less invasive and, the whole bit, and return back to work and all of that good stuff. I'm very much interested in autism and the treatment of autism and how we will get that off the ground in this state and getting, we don't even have enough providers to people that specialize in that field to be able to treat all of the people that are going to be covered coming soon in October.
Yeah, it was an email from you, and that is fascinating because that is a lifelong, expensive process to do that, to provide the education and everything for an autistic person.
I've already had someone that doesn't, a physician that does not treat it the traditional way, but it was so interesting, and that will soon air. And now I'm looking forward to having the physician that talks about it from the traditional standpoint of treatment, and that will enlighten our viewers to see, oh, there is the alternative way of treating it, because there's no cure for it, but it's just to educate. I mean, just to learn about autism is just, and the people that families that
have their impact.
So it's going to be just that is just going to be interesting, and just the overall implementation of all the changes that are coming down as we try to cover every American with health in health insurance and getting bringing some information to the community.
This is going to be a year.
Yes,
of it.
It's going to be a year.
Okay,
I won't be short. I
don't
think Dr. Balle will either, but I don't think I'll be short.
Right, that's right. And Dr. Balle, David Balle, what's up with you this season?
Well, I have one of my upcoming guests is actually the director of the Josephine Ford Cancer Center and a lung cancer specialist. We did a very interesting show, I think. I have a female orthopedic surgeon, which I have come to know, and I suspected there aren't that many of them. And she's going to give her perspective on orthopedic surgery, and she offers a lot of alternative non-surgical approaches in her practice, which I thought were very interesting. I'm going to be talking with a member of the clergy about his view on what role in religion or prayer can do for our health and well-being. I have somebody who I'm going to be interviewing who's going to talk about what are successful weight loss mechanisms.
Oh, yeah.
And with a name I think people will be familiar with. And I have a pharmacist coming up who I think will be important for people. As I see people in my practice, a lot of people don't really necessarily know what they should know when they take their prescription to the pharmacy, and allergies and various other things. And I'll be searching the news and keeping my eyes and ears open.
Excellent. That's excellent. Okay, and here's what I'm up to. As I go back home to New York, I'm I live right up by Columbia, and so imagine the context up there. It's staggering. But as Kermit says, what are you doing a show in Florida? You live in New York, and your show's in Grosse Pointe. So I go, well, anyway, I have some really cool shows coming out of Florida that I'll be getting into in probably a couple months, sometime this fall. One is What a Company. And it deals with the electronic medical records. And, that is a mandatory law coming, and as it has gone through hospitals and any kind of system, it is a major change in the system. And sometimes if it's a small, office, whatever, shutting down the office to be able to implement things, updating everybody's minds about what you do need to do now with computers to make your practice not only more efficient in how you deal with your records, but guess what? It's going to be a law. So everybody's going to have to be on board with it. We're going to talk to somebody who has created something that is in the work. It's already happening, but is very interesting, and I'm really pleased to introduce him to you, the company to you, and then talk on another show to some of the physicians whose specialty will be spreading the news to their own specialty physicians. Then I have a show from a med school down in Florida. We're going to talk about what's new down there. And Jeb Bush, and this is completely apolitical comment, but when Jeb Bush was in office in Florida as governor, he really made a huge change for southern Florida, taking a tourist-based industry into a very biodiverse industry, increasing medical schools, research centers, drug companies, all kinds of things. We're going to get into some of that information because it impacts from down there as it trickles up north of the Yankees here. It's very interesting. And then, and literally it's how that goes. I have people coming in from out of town to do some shows here while I'm in town. So again, I thank everybody here in the studio. They have all changed their lives, changed their schedules to be with me on In a Heartbeat. It's so fun. And two, I want to tell you right now, I thank anybody who's ever been on the show, any of the shows, for any host in this network, because you know what? Any person who walks into this studio is doing it, not being paid. You should know that. They volunteer their time. It is their way of giving back to the community. It's a hugely important thing to do. We should all be doing it. You got to give back, do something for the common good of man. So I want to thank everybody who's ever been on this show or my other shows, but really anybody who's ever given time to this studio, WMTV. We are all beholden to you. Yeah, so literally. Yes. Here. And here to the greatest crew to work with.
Absolutely.
And the greatest mentor.
The greatest mentor.
Thank you. Joan Patrick Morris, Dr. David Balle, JC, John
See you on
Clor.
Cars and Context.
I just have one word for you. You better keep the studio doors locked when you're taping.
Okay, that's right.
All right, so
you
you've heard what we have to say. You've heard the news. Check out his new show. You'll be seeing a PSA.
Coming this fall.
Coming this fall with the Times and stuff. And I thank you. You know what they think about what they're doing and the value of giving time to us. You know what they think? Seriously, tell me. What do you think?